everyone, my name is Claudia and I am an adolescent and young adult mental health therapist, and I'm here to talk to you guys today about a really big topic. This is something that I hear all the time on a daily basis, and I swear if I had $1 for every time I heard it, I'd be collecting money. So in my practice, I do assessments, I do evaluations, and I do treatment plans. When it comes time for the treatment plan, we develop goals for patients to want to work towards during their treatment phase. One thing I hear more than probably anything I've heard is, Claudia, I just want to be happy again. I don't feel like myself. I feel like I'm struggling and I just want to be happy. Okay, so that's a really big goal to work on. And it's like, oh my gosh, if this person has been struggling for, 5-10 years, how on earth am I supposed to help create happiness? So many of us don't wake up in the morning feeling happy. And when we're told, just think happy thoughts and do happy things and that's gonna make you happy, it kind of gets us down even further, because if we're not there yet, that's not going to work for us. So I have spent a little bit of time trying to develop this construct of happiness, and what is happiness really, and why aren't people happy, and how do we begin to foster and develop happiness? The 3 tenets that I believe help foster and create happiness, I developed not only through my clinical experience for the past 9 to 10 years, but I adapted from empirical and evaluated research, and really just from my own experiences. I'm just like you guys, I feel sad, I feel down, and so I hope that you guys find these 3 things helpful. And again, they're just meant to be a building block. I'm not here to tell you guys if you follow these 3 steps, you will be happy. But I certainly do believe that these are 3 things that if we're feeling low, if we're feeling down, we really need to take a step back and reevaluate which of these 3 am I not fostering to create and foster happiness. Tenet number 1 I have for you guys to foster and create happiness is actually an empirically validated skill. It comes from DBT, which stands for Dialectical Behavioral Therapy, and it is the emotion regulation skill called opposite to emotion action. Opposite to emotion action is basically not feeding unpleasant or undesirable emotions. And we want to use this skill when the emotion is unjustified. So, for example, if I am struggling with depression is going to tell me, why don't you go in your room? Why don't you isolate? Go ahead and turn the lights off. Stay, avoid, don't talk to people. Opposite to emotion action is not doing the complete opposite of what that emotion is telling us to do. We never want to go from one extreme to the other, because it's not realistic and it's not going to be desirable for us in the end, because it's usually not attainable. If I'm sad and if I'm depressed, there's no way that I can call 15 of my friends over and socialize for the next 2 hours, because I'm depressed and I'm struggling. So with opposite to emotion action, all we're talking about is we're going to take that tiny first baby step to simply not feed the undesirable emotion. So if I'm in my room, if the lights are off, if I'm avoiding, if I'm isolating, maybe my first baby step with opposite to emotion action is gonna be simply, why don't you turn on the lights, maybe open the door, maybe call up a friend or text somebody. And if that's too much, start even smaller. All we're talking about is taking that very first tiny baby step to simply not feed the emotion. Anxiety is the same way. The more we avoid something with an anxiety stimulus, the more it's going to grow. Opposite emotion action, I think, is super, super important when it comes to happiness. So many times we feed these undesirable emotions. I have patients come to me all the time saying, Claudia, I'm using this coping skill and I'm doing my thought challenges every single day, and maybe I'm doing progressive muscle relaxation, I'm journaling, I'm doing all this stuff, yet for whatever reason I'm still I'm nixed out, I'm null, I'm not really getting better. I feel a little bit better, but I'm not really where I want to be. Okay, what are you doing to feed your negative emotions? And that is usually the culprit we have. You see, we can do a really good job at using all these coping skills, but if we begin and continue to feed these undesirable and unpleasant emotions, we're going to hit a standstill. With opposite to emotion action, we need to identify what the undesirable emotion is and how am I continuing to feed. If we feed, we can't possibly get better. The second tenet to happiness is arguably probably the most difficult one for people to foster and create. The idea here is to practice self-compassion. we have this tendency to be compassionate towards our friends. We're warm, we're kind. When they mess up, when they make a mistake, we're very forgiving, we're empathic. Yet we hold ourselves to a standard that is typically much higher. We're not allowed to mess up. So the idea here is practicing self-compassion, extending that warmth, extending that kindness to our own perceived inadequacy, giving ourselves the same love that we would give our friends. One resource for you guys is this book, Self-Compassion by Dr. Kristin Neff. This is a wonderful source for you guys to put a really good starting point. She stresses it, and I do this in my practice a lot with my patients, is to have them write a letter of self-compassion. Step one of writing this letter is to write down all of our perceived inadequacies. Writing a letter of, I feel stupid, I feel shameful, I feel guilty for whatever I feel my flaws are. Dedicate, as much time and as much space as you need to into writing out all the things that make you feel inadequate. The second part of it is to write some type of response letter. You can do this from your own perspective. You can do this from a friend's perspective. How would my friend Katie respond if she read this about me? What would she say to me? Rewriting this letter of self-compassion really directs our attention away from who we are and allows us to see those perceived inadequacies from somebody else's perspective and extending compassion to them. We're gonna have flaws and we're gonna have inadequacies. We don't have to be perfect in everything, and quite frankly, we're not gonna be perfect at everything. If we can show ourselves a little bit more love, a little bit more care, that's going to help to grow and foster the happiness that we do have within ourselves. And the third tenet to help foster and create happiness is a fun one. Setting goals for ourselves, setting some type of positive activity or goal or something fun and exciting to look forward to. I feel like life becomes really mundane, it becomes really boring if we don't set some type of fun and positive activities or positive goals for ourselves to work on. One thing that I have developed that I use, again, with my patients in my practice, I call it 333 bucket list, is you start with 3 goals or 3 experiences or 3 things that you want to put on your bucket list that are small items, 3 things on your bucket list that you want to eventually do that are medium items, and 3 things on your bucket list that you want to do that are large items. So for me, for example, maybe something small on my bucket list that I want to work towards, something small would be skydiving. I know for some of you, maybe that's a really big goal, but I'm an adrenaline seeker, so for me, that's a small goal. Maybe a medium goal for me to put on my bucket list would be to go and visit the Grand Canyon, and maybe a large item on my bucket list would be to eventually go to Thailand. To do this too is just to create mini daily goals. The bucket list items are great, but they also may seem really far-fetched, right? Like, when am I gonna go to Thailand? When am I gonna have the time to do that? It sounds like a great idea, and the feasibility of it right now maybe just isn't realistic. I don't have the time, I don't have the money. So, if that's not the approach we wanna take, another thing we can do is to create these daily mini goals. So, okay, maybe today is Friday, and today something I really wanna look forward to is I wanna watch that one episode on Netflix that I still have left. And that's something to get me through my day to make it a little bit more exciting towards the end. Tomorrow is Saturday, so maybe tomorrow I've been really craving a steak. So maybe tomorrow I'm gonna take myself to a pretty decent dinner and I'm gonna treat myself to a steak. Maybe Sunday comes around. Okay, now Sunday I've been really wanting to go kayaking. There's a lake by me and I can go kayaking on Sunday. So giving ourselves these mini daily goals can also be a really fun way to foster and create happiness. Creating positive activities, creating fun experiences elevates dopamine levels. Dopamine is our pleasure chemical. We want dopamine, it's good stuff. And if we can create dopamine through creating some type of positive and fun experience, those are things that are going to aid in happiness. Okay, so to summarize this for you guys, the 3 tenets are opposite to emotion action, practicing self-compassion, and setting some type of positive goals or activities. We want to make sure that we are not feeding negative or unpleasant or undesirable emotions. We want to make sure that we are practicing self-compassion within ourselves and extending it to ourselves the same way that we would for other people. And we want to make sure that we give ourselves something fun, something enjoyable to look forward to with life. We have to work towards happiness and create it in the way that is realistic for us. So, I hope that you guys find these 3 tenets helpful. I hope that you can recognize maybe ways that you do tend to feed unpleasant emotions. Maybe recognizing ways that, yeah, I tend to be a lot more compassionate towards my friend over here, not really myself. And maybe recognizing it's been a little while since I've set some type of fun or pleasurable activity for myself to do. I hope you guys find this video helpful. If you do, please share it, send it to your friends, send it to your family, send it to somebody who might benefit. And I look forward to your guys' feedback and response as well. Thank you.